Over the last week, I have been filming with this monitor right here, which is the Atomos Shinobi 2. It just launched last Thursday, just delivered last Friday, and I've had about 20 hours or so of using this monitor. And before this review goes any further, I just want to be very straight up with you. This is now my everyday use monitor. I am not returning it. I am not getting rid of it. There is nothing better on the market for what I do. Just being very clear with that. Yes, there are caveats. Yes, I believe there are some improvements. But as far as the monitors, the way that I use monitors and the way that I use monitors every day on this handheld rig, I love the Shinobi 2 and I think it is phenomenal. You see, the thing I love about YouTube is just the community that we are able to create. And I say that in a way of, I am able to learn so much from all of the different comments that come through on this channel that help me be a better creator, help me be a better filmmaker, and just help me be better at YouTube overall. See, I've been responding to every single comment since the beginning of this channel because I genuinely enjoy learning from them. So if you've got any info that we didn't discuss in this video, leave me a comment, or if you've got any thoughts, leave me a comment, because chances are I'm gonna learn something and I love learning things. So let's dive into this review. Let's first talk about the hottest topic in all of the comments everywhere is, does this monitor have touch to focus? Because people seem to care about every camera control ever. They really only care about if it has touch to focus, because the Monitor Plus app allows touch to focus. Portkeys monitors allow touch to focus, even though it's terrible, but everybody wants touch to focus. And the initial answer is no, it doesn't have touch to focus. It wasn't announced with the monitor. It's not in the software at all. However, if you go to Atomos's YouTube channel, and especially on this video walking through the Shinobi 2 camera control walkthrough, there are several comments from Atomos in the comments section of this video saying, hey, please know that we agree this would be a great feature and we are in the process of testing it now. We know our coordinates of the touch on the pixels of the image, so should be able to get that info to the camera over USB-C. We just need to make sure that it is fast enough for autofocus changes. Thank you, Atomos. And they've responded several times to several different comments about touch to focus on this YouTube channel and this comment section. So Atomos is listening. Atomos is listening to your comments. They look like they'll be adding touch to focus here soon. So although that is not a feature that is currently available on especially my Sony camera, it's something that I can live without, but it's also something that I'm excited to see in the future iterations of this camera. So just know, hey, it might not be available right now, but it should be ideally coming. Apparently they're working on it. So keep that in mind. Let's jump to number 2, image quality. I'm just gonna throw this out there because I am used to working with sub $500 monitors, and in that range, Atomos has by far the best picture quality out of any of them. The fonts on this software are relatively small, but that is okay because the pixels are stupid clear. Obviously, this is a 4K monitor versus a lot of the 1080 monitors that I'm used to seeing, but this monitor, you can just, it's a darn good image. And there's been some questions about like, oh, color accuracy and things like that. It looks pretty darn accurate to me. You see, I loaded my standard Sony LUT that I've been using for all of my films into this monitor directly, have it pulled up, and it looks pretty darn stinking good right on the monitor. I have no complaints at all. I know you can calibrate this monitor with a monitor calibration tool and all that. I'm probably never gonna do that because I don't see it as that big of a deal. When I'm color grading, when I'm editing, of course, that needs to be accurate and that needs to be full picture and things like that. But when I'm out filming, I'm looking for a reference, I'm looking for framing, I'm looking for things like that. But just having an image quality that looks darn good is very nice. And when you compare this to something like this, which is the Portkeys LH7P, side by side, these monitors are night and day. The Atomos Shinobi 2 wins every single time. And Even I noticed, this is a very, very difficult to show in video, but I noticed this a lot when filming outdoors this past weekend at a wedding. The display is reflective, yes, but even though we were outside in direct sunlight, that brightness on the display, and it's not quite as reflective as some, I was still able to monitor that display all the time, even though I have this set up to where this monitor points pretty high directly at the sun. It's not leaning back to me. I don't use sunshades at all, but I was noticing there was a little bit of glare on the screen, but it was not a big deal. So the brightness of that being at 1500 nits, just the overall image quality, I just think that's fantastic. I think it's a fantastic feature and definitely not something to overlook. All right, let's talk through some of the problems. So in my initial review, I noticed something weird going on when you're in the camera control menu. The dial on your A7S just doesn't work. You can't switch modes between your custom modes 1, 2, and 3, or your video modes or S and Q. It just doesn't work. But after fiddling around with a little bit more, especially throughout the full day, I noticed that when you exit the camera control menu, you're free to use your dials however you need to. There's no need to unplug a USB-C or anything like that. So it really is just as you're in the camera control, your dials are disabled, and then switching back to your monitor controls, your dials are fully able to do. So that's perfectly fine to me, because you're going to, you're not going to be in the middle of a recording while you're trying to change from 30 to 60 or to 120. It's just not a big deal. So I noticed that a lot, where I would stop recording, switch to my monitor controls, change my dials, flip back to my camera control, and start recording again. It worked out flawlessly throughout the wedding day, because there's a couple sections in there where I'll switch from 30 to 60, back to 60, back to 30, and just having those dials being able to use was fantastic. So that was a big problem that I introduced in my first video of this monitor, that really isn't an issue at all. And after talking to Atomos, it seems to be more of a Sony limitation, not so much of a Atomos limitation. So they're kind of pushing that blame over to Sony, which it's not a big deal because there's a workaround. Now, the other thing that we haven't figured out a workaround yet. I've sent some emails to Atomos' inquiry. I've sent some things like that. When you are recording and you're in the camera control on the monitor, if you want to go over to the monitor controls and load something new like zebras or waveforms or anything, or check your zoom, when you switch over, it will stop recording completely on your camera, which is just a disaster, because especially thinking of things like long takes, say you're doing an interview and you're doing a long take, or even a wedding ceremony, you're in a long take and you want to bounce over and say, hey, let's zoom in and check focus really quick. You cannot do that without stopping recording, even in the monitor settings, which I've sent Atomos an email about this. They've emailed me back and they said, hey, we'll work on this, or they didn't really respond. They just said, hey, we sent it over to the right people. That is the biggest problem with this monitor overall, out of all the issues that are even potential issues, is the fact that when you're recording on the camera and you're in the camera control, you cannot go over to your monitor controls without stopping recording. That's something that needs to be fixed in a software update. It's probably a big bummer for a lot of people who do long take recordings, and it's definitely a bummer for me, and it's something that I'm gonna have to continuously remember. Hey, when you're recording, don't you dare click into your monitor controls, because it will kill your entire recording. So just keep that in mind. That is probably the biggest downfall of this monitor that I see so far. Up next, let's just talk about general reliability with USB-C. I have been looking for a monitor for the past 6 months that can do camera control wired connection, that has just a solid wired reliable connection. And this is honestly the first one that I've ever used that has just been fantastic to use all day. And that is because of that USB-C port on the back of the monitor. So not only does it provide power delivery to your camera all day long, it is just a solid connection for camera control. It works when you turn the monitor on, it works when you turn your camera off and back on. It just loads up perfectly and it works. A lot of the port keys versions, so like this LH7P, uses the camera's wireless functionality to be able to get camera control, which works most of the time, but you're still relying on a wireless connection even though your monitor is 6 inches away from your camera all day. And when you turn your camera off, you have to reload and reconnect and redo all these things. The reliability of just that USB-C cable was fantastic. I've talked about it on the channel before, but when I was using this LH7P for, say, all-day shoots, like a 10 to 12-hour wedding day, when I would be using this monitor, I would not want to turn my camera off at all. I would not want to turn the monitor off at all. And that was mainly because I didn't want to have to go through the steps of reconnecting the monitor to the camera for my camera controls. I just never wanted to do that. So I would just end up leaving my camera on all day, burning unnecessary battery. And with the Atomos Shinobi 2, I don't have a care in the world. I can turn that thing off, turn it back on, turn the monitor off, turn it back on, do whatever I want. If I have to jump in the car real quick, I'll turn the camera off, throw it in the back of the car, because I know that when I turn my camera on and I turn the monitor back on, it just automatically connects and works. Along with that, the USB-C power delivery to the camera, fantastic. Because before, I would always run a USB-C cable from my V-mount battery to the camera to keep my camera just charging all day. And the power delivery out of the Atomos delivers full power to my Sony camera all day long. I put the battery in at 100% that morning. We were on and off. I recorded 250 gigs that day, on and off all day for probably 12 hours straight. And I left that event with my camera battery, still the same battery, at 100%. So it delivers full power to my Sony a7S camera, and it's just seamless, and I love it. So, okay, so I'm editing this video. I realized I did not touch on this topic. Somebody asked in one of my comments earlier, hey, is there a way to turn off power delivery? Like if I don't want power delivery going to my camera, is there a way to turn that off through the monitor? The answer is no, but depending on what camera you have, you can turn this off within your camera. So on my A7S here, if you go into the menu, you're in 51, 54 under USB settings, you can turn USB power supply off. And when the Atomos is connected, like it currently is, you do not get charging there. Or if you turn this mode back to on, now on the camera, you will see that we are charging. So you can turn that on and off with just your camera settings. Props to you, Atomos, for getting a reliable camera control connection going on. I'm a big fan of just the reliability of it because it just works, and it works. Up next, I want to kind of talk about the locations of these HDMI and USB-C port. You see, I've seen some comments on there of like, man, like, thank goodness they got rid of the side ports. Like the back ports are so much better. I don't mind a side port as long as you're rocking some sort of right-angled cable that keeps that cable tight to the side. However, I don't mind these ports either because I'm still on these right-angled cables. And these right-angled cables work very well with keeping that seam line, cable line directly down to the handle and down to the side of the camera. Because I'm a big cable management fan. Like if you're not cable managing and you've got cables all out the side of your camera, like just get out of here with that nonsense. It looks stupid, you don't look professional, and it just seems like a disaster waiting to happen. So with this, I even appreciate where the cable lines are because I've got a right-angled USB-C cable that just goes straight down. I want to get a slightly longer cable if I can find one about an inch longer, just where I can tuck it in a little bit tighter. But for the meantime, this is perfectly fine. With the HDMI cable, I've got a right-angled HDMI cable as well that goes into kind of where the battery thing is and then locks right down the side handle. And then as well with this three-way kind of MPF adapter that I'm using for power, for DC power, I've got that right-angled cable that goes right down the monitor as well. So it keeps a clean cable setup. It doesn't have any dangling cables all out the side. The ports are fine. Like I know there were some comments of like, oh, the ports are gonna be in the way, but if you buy the right cables, because they make them in every single direction possible, if you buy the right cables, you're going to be just fine. So I don't mind where the ports are. I think they look good. I think it keeps it clean. And yeah, it's fairly simple to do. All right, overall, let's just talk about the general size and feel. One of the downsides of this monitor, which is kind of just a dumb downside that I have, is just, man, the bezels are thick, all right? They made that monitor so thin, and they just put all of that beef right in the fat bezels on the side. And so this thing is not much smaller overall than my 7-inch monitor, just because the bezels are a lot thinner on that LH7P. But it is a thin monitor, which is great. However, the problem with the thinness, and it's like, it's not even, it doesn't matter because the monitor doesn't have a DC port anyways. So you're just gaining all of that thickness back by having to put some sort of MPF adapter into the back where you can get DC power into the monitor. So congrats Atomos for making a thin monitor, but you still have to have these massive DC plates to actually connect battery to it. And I mean, it's the size is cool. I guess it's nice that it's thin, but I would love to see something with thinner bezels, obviously. And I would love to see something without needing an MPF plate on the back. I would love to just see a barrel connection for DC power right on that monitor. Overall, I just wanted to kind of run through my thoughts on using this monitor for about 15 hours total now. I'm loving this thing. The image quality is fantastic. The reliability with USB-C is just fantastic. Overall, the problems are minimal from what it is. And the fact that they're working on touch focus makes this it's going to get better, I believe. So I'm super pumped for this monitor. I've been searching for a monitor for the last 6 months, just mainly to be on this handheld camera rig and just to work with camera control and just to be a good monitor. And this, I think we finally got it, you know? So I'm super excited for it. Obviously, like I said in the intro of this video, comments are so important to me. I love reading each and every one of these comments, and I love learning from things in the comments. So number one, if I said anything wrong, call me out in the comments for it. Let me know. If I said anything right, call me out in the comments for it. Let me know. If you've got other gripes or other issues or other wins or other things that you'd like to talk about, let me know in the comments because I would love to learn about them. So overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you guys on the next one, hopefully with more camera content coming on the way. See you later. Bye-bye.